at the time generated some disapproval from others in the federal government. We've made a number of administrative changes to accommodate employees with childcare challenges or other issues. And our Chief of Staff, Matthew Berry, has done an incredible job keeping employees posted by sending detailed updates to all employees on a regular basis. Our staff has been there for us over the past 4 years, and we wanted to make it clear that we would be there for them. And by the way, one challenge with promoting more effective governance is that it can be hard to tell if your efforts are paying dividends. But one measure is for it to be stress tested by an unforeseen event. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has offered such a test like nothing before it. Almost overnight, the Commission was expected to do all of its work remotely. And at the same time, that workload increased significantly. It seemed like every other day, we were granting temporary authority to another mobile broadband or fixed wireless company to use additional spectrum to meet the increased demands for connectivity. We also made changes to our programs to connect schools or low-income consumers or individuals who are deaf or have a speech disability, and relaxed rules to help extend service to more people during the pandemic. All the while, the Commission's regular bread and butter work continued unabated. I'm particularly proud of the work our team did to stand up a new telehealth program in record time. As part of the CARES Act, Congress appropriated $200 million for the FCC to support healthcare providers' use of telehealth services during this national emergency. Just days after the president signed the CARES Act into law on March 27th, the FCC established the program. By April 13th, the FCC had already begun accepting applications. We evaluated and approved applications on a rolling basis, and by July 8th, we had committed all $200 million. In the end, we approved 539 funding applications from 47 states, plus Washington, D.C. and Guam. Recipients range from community health centers to mental health clinics to nonprofit hospital systems in both rural and urban areas of the country, from New York City to Navajo Nation. All of this was possible only because of an agency-wide effort. We were able to process those applications in short order because the FCC staff pulled together and did an incredible amount of work from across the agency. Similarly, staff from different offices came together to process the applications for the first ever auction of mid-band spectrum for 5G, which was a big success despite all of the disruptions. They also came together to help process applications for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. Throughout a time with so much uncertainty, one constant that I could count on is that the FCC staff were always willing to take on new tasks in order to get the work of the agency done in a timely manner, and they did so without complaint. In 2020, the FCC was tested like never before, and our remarkable team answered the call every single time. Now, that is a great testament, of course, to our current staff, but we're also focused on bringing in new talent, focused on the FCC workforce of the future. For example, we launched a new honors engineer program to recruit current students and recent engineering school graduates, the best and brightest, to the FCC. Many of the issues before the Commission are technically complex. Our new honors program opens up a pipeline to bring that great engineering talent into the Commission, a vital need given how many issues there are that require technical expertise. Additionally, I partnered with Commissioner Starks to create the Early Career Staff Diversity Initiative. Starting this month, the FCC is providing a select number of paid internships to law, graduate, or undergraduate students each semester and summer. These internships should create opportunities for students who may otherwise be financially unable to participate in unpaid internships at the FCC. To increase the diversity of our job applicant pool, especially for our honors attorney and honors engineer programs, we're also investing additional resources to recruit students from historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities, and other minority serving institutions. I'm really proud of this effort to ensure a more diverse workforce, just as we have made great strides over the years to promote a more diverse marketplace. In closing, let me just say this. Leading the FCC, over the past 4 years has been the greatest honor of my professional life. And it's not because of the title or the office or the other accoutrements. It's because we have been able to deliver incredible results for the American people. And in doing so, indeed, in order to do so, we made fundamental changes to how the FCC operates. We made the agency more transparent. We cemented the importance of good economic analysis, and we put people first. Thanks to these key reforms, I would like to think that I'm leaving the agency better off than when I arrived. And if I'm right, this kid from Kansas will take it. Thank you so much again to Randy and to Free State for giving me this opportunity.
Ajit, thank you so much. Again, I said at the outset that in all the appearances you've made at our conferences and events, you've never ever disappointed us. All of your remarks have been substantive and memorable, and that certainly was true today in a lot of ways. At least for me, I earlier said that I'm sure it was going to be poignant, and that's true. But it also prompted me to want to offer these reactions, which probably are not what you would necessarily put in the most substantive category, and maybe a little more personal, but I think relevant to what you said. First of all, when you were talking, when I talked about how I viewed your chairmanship so consequential, I reeled off some substantive areas. Restoring internet freedom, of course, is always one of my most consequential items. But I didn't really refer to the incredible productivity that took place while you were chair. I can say this, I think, without any fear of contradiction. I don't think there's ever been a period of anyone's chairmanship where, if you just wanted to measure, productivity by the number of items that were issued, the number of matters addressed, and so forth, that would match yours, and so that really, as you were speaking, that made me really relate to what you said about the staff. Obviously, it's a tribute to you and your fellow colleagues, all of them, but it's a tribute to the staff as well. And so I just want to say, really, I served at the commission and back from 78 to 81 in the general counsel's office. So that was my experience. And I felt then, and I've said many times thereafter, that it was one of the highlights of my professional career, really. And, a large reason for that, aside from whatever else we may or may not have accomplished, was being able to work with the staff and the high quality of the staff and the dedication. When you've got 2,000 people, more or less, it's silly to say that, that's true of every single one of the 2,000, but it was certainly true, of most of them. And I was grateful for that during the time. And I want to say this, relating to that, when you're in the think tank world like we are, and we're commenting and taking positions on a lot of issues, and we do that actively and try and do it in a forceful way. But one thing that we've always tried to do at the Free State Foundation, and that I always commit to trying to do in the future, is never ever talk about any of these things in a personal way, and that goes for the commissioners and the staff. And the reason, a reason for that is, it's not the right way to approach things, but it also, I recognize the dedication and hard work, that go into accomplishing things at the commission, whether you agree with all of them or not. So what you said about that, Rangham, ring an important bell with me. Another thing I would, that came to mind, because you were talking in significant part about process, and for some people that's not as exciting as talking about the next spectrum band or what's going to happen on net neutrality, but it really is so important. And we always talk at the Free State Foundation about one of our missions being to promote the rule of law. Well, process, in my view, is integral to, of course, promoting the rule of law. Alexander Bickel, one of the Yale Law School professor, most prominent Yale Law School professors, he wrote a book, The Morality of Consent. And in that book, and I've quoted this often, and if for those of you that have heard it many times, my apologies, but Professor Bickel said, the highest form of morality is process. And, whether you agree in all respects with that, it's awfully important, really, to achieving consent and acceptance in our, democratic republic. And so you furthered that at the FCC. And I'm really grateful for that, really.
Oh, thank you.
And then the final thing I'll say, and this is just a matter of personal privilege, really, but I know you're a University of Chicago law graduate. You referred to Professor Cass Sunstein there, and his class. My daughter, Brooke Taylor, who is a brilliant lawyer, she also had Professor Sunstein, and this is just an anecdote for you University of Chicago law graduates and others, that on the first day in class, Professor Sunstein called on Brooke, and her name at the time, of course, her last name was May. And maybe it was easy to pick out among all the other names there, but he called on Brooke, and she answered the question, I think, correctly, or at least intelligibly. And so much so that he referred to Brooke as my textualist. And then every day for the rest of the semester, and this was not an exaggeration, he would call on Brooke as his textualist to give that perspective. So, he had a relationship as well Brooke had a relationship with Cass Sunstein as well. And so she would appreciate, she's watching today, and she would, I know, appreciate what you said about Cass Sunstein and his work at OIRA too. So anyway, I wanted to offer those immediate reflections. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to my colleague, Seth Cooper, to get a reaction from him. And then after Seth, I'll ask Andrew as well whether he has a reaction. So,
okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Ajit. Seth, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Randy, and thank you, Chairman Pai, for those terrific comments, insight you gave us into your ideas of good governance and process reforms. I would take a moment to commend you for the process that you led the commission through, reaching an important and key decision on the L-band order from April of 2020. And for our viewing audience, I'm talking about a proceeding involving about 30 megahertz of very valuable L-band spectrum that has the potential to deliver terrestrial wireless services and deliver potentially hundreds of millions in economic benefits and create a few million jobs, particularly at a time when we are trying to free up as much spectrum for commercial use as we can. Yet those 30 megahertz have gone unused. And so that the licensees of that spectrum, I'm talking about Legato Networks and its predecessors, have kicked around applications for a long time, since well before you were chairman. And it would have been far easier for the commission to have kicked that can down the road and let that be someone else's business. But it's very important that you actually led the agency to an actual decision in the matter rather than just letting it lie. And not only that, but it came through as a very deliberative process with rounds of public comment, keeping the public updated, and with a decision that was reasoned and substantively supported, and certainly within the agency's authority and consistent with its procedures. And although the decision received the support of some federal agencies, not the support of others, it was a unanimous decision, but it was a tough call. But I think that when decisions are tough, but they need to be made, I think perhaps you'd agree with me that good processes can really boost your confidence in the decision. And so that going forward, as you reach the conclusion of your chairmanship, I would expect and hope that a decision like the L-band order would be the kind that you can truly stand by when you look back on things.
Absolutely. I mean, if I could add a quick commentary on that, thank you for the kind words about that particular decision. And I think it's emblematic of how a process has contributed to substance because we had an open door where anybody could submit information, positive or negative, about the Legato application. And because we empowered the commission staff, in particular the Office of Engineering and Technology, to focus on the facts, the decision we made was honestly an easy one in the sense that we were doing what we thought the engineering analysis showed. We didn't rubber stamp the application. We didn't simply say no, and we didn't just sit on it. What we did was apply careful conditions, the reduction in power to 99.8%, the 23 megahertz guard band carved out of Legato's own spectrum, some other coordination conditions tailored for us to be able to say, we've approved this application in a way that preserves the viability of GPS and adjacent spectrum while allowing Legato to move forward. And we could not have done that but for the agency's terrific career staff spending many, many hours over the years, helping us get to that right decision. It obviously required me and the fellow commissioners to pull the trigger on the final decision, which was the right one. But it's a great testament to having a process and having a staff that enables us to get to that result.
Absolutely. I endorse everything that you just said and commend you for it as well. I'm going to ask Andrew now to offer a reaction or comment. Andrew.
Sure. Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Chairman Pai. Listen to your comments about process and people. It made me think of my time years ago at the commission, and I spent some time in the media bureau, both as staff on one floor and then in the front office on another. And it made me think about the new headquarters. And I'm sure you must be disappointed having spent, I have to imagine, tons of work getting everything ready to move in there, and then having the pandemic deny you the opportunity to christen the place and have a meeting there and all that. But are there ways in which you think that the new space will be an environment that will be more conducive to interaction and to collaboration, where you won't have to have a key card on a extendable leash to get through 5 doors to go talk to somebody else in the agency? Was that part of the process in setting up the new space? And do you expect that will lead to more collaboration between bureaus and offices and people who in the old space were more insular?
That's a great question, and we certainly hope so. And I should preface this by saying that thank you for recognizing the amount of work we put in to that new building. It's never going to be known to the outside world, but me in particular, Matthew Berry, our chief of staff, our other staff in the Office of Managing Director, spent countless hours on any number of issues regarding the new building. And obviously, we're not going to be able to take advantage of it, which is disappointing. But nonetheless, I'm confident that once the FCC leadership to come makes a determination that it's safe to go back in and bring our staff in, they're going to find a building that is just fantastic. I mean, the physical space, I think, is beautiful. One of the things I asked them to prioritize was ambient light and having a more open layout so that people could see each other more easily, as opposed to the current building or the building we had in Southwest. And I can't remember exactly what the protocols were for going from floor to floor. Obviously we have to observe certain security requirements and the like, but I think in terms of the actual floors themselves, people will find it much more conducive to collaborating. So just to give you an example, right outside the commission meeting room, there are a few little nooks that we came up with where people can step aside to have their own private conversations, or in small groups, collaborate. And it's just such a beautiful, welcoming space. It's hard to describe, obviously, just through my own words. Once you see it, though, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I will say also that it highlights, at least for me anyway, what is probably my greatest disappointment over the last 4 years, which is that for the last 10 months or so, we just haven't been able to see my coworkers because we've gone to a work from home protocol. And I don't know about any of you, but I certainly underestimated, or I didn't underestimate, but I just didn't think about it as often as I should have, I guess, just how much being in the same physical proximity to your coworkers makes a big difference. Just those organic conversations in the hall, or getting to see Officer Jackson, when I walk into my office, or seeing people in the lobby. I mean, it's just the little, the glue, I suppose you might say, of your day is really those conversations that help you remember that you're all in it together, that you're all part of one big family. And not having had that for the last 10 months is one of the things I'll always be sad about. But nonetheless, it's been a privilege to work alongside them, even in a virtual environment.
Thank you, Andrew. Ajit, you may have just said this, and I apologize if I'm momentarily tuned out, but are the commissioners in the new building, when you get back in, are the commissioners going to be located on the 8th floor?
So it's the 10th floor. And yeah, I think, gosh, I have to remember if it's marked 10 or something else, but it's in terms of the literal floor that it's on, it's the 10th floor. There's a tenant on the 11th floor that's not the FCC, so we're not at the top floor. And so I know there's a lot of attachment to the 8th floor, but I believe anyway, it's the 10th floor at the moment. So
that is something that doesn't fall into the consequential category, but for old timers like myself, at least since the 70s, in the building on M Street, the commissioners have always been on the 8th floor, and I'm sure, for some of us, when we talk about it, and if we're talking about visiting the commissioners or whatever, we'll say the 8th floor, but we'll get used to it.
Yeah, that's one change. The other change is, of course, the seal. We had a contest among the employees, and so we've now got a new seal. Gone is the electrocuted eagle, and in is the more sort of modernized seal, I guess you might say. So yeah, thanks to the staffer who came up with that seal, and for everybody who voted or came up with designs. So yeah, things are changing. And like I said, when you see the commission meeting room, you'll see not just the seal, but just a really beautiful environment for commission deliberations. And so I hope the future commissioners and staff and people who attend commission meetings will really enjoy it. It's a much more welcoming experience, and it's going to be terrific interactively for those watching on the web. It's just a great space, I think.
Okay, well, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to let you go. And I heard your dog in the background, and
Yes.
you would be happy to meet him too. But just as we get ready to close, I want to offer you an opportunity to react to this thought that I have. If I would understand if you wouldn't, but in listening to everything today and thinking back over your tenure, and when I prepared my opening, that I did think back to that weed whacker speech, and I quoted here today at the outset, Ajit, your statement that proof of market failure should guide the next commission's consideration of new regulations, and the commission should only adopt a regulation if the benefits outweigh the cost. And to me, those are propositions that ought to be fairly incontestable. But there's going to be a change at the commission shortly. That's elections have that consequence. There's going to be a new chair. Over time, there'll be new commissioners. What, because you've accomplished so much, and to my way of thinking, it's been attributable in significant part to that guiding philosophical predisposition or perspective that you have about markets and freedom and entrepreneurship and so forth. What and there's so much, and the pandemic has I think shown for so many people how well our networks have performed under that regime with the flexibility and less stringent regulatory environment that otherwise might have been in place. What might you say to your successor about if you were offering your parting wisdom at this point concerning how to approach the job that you've had, you know, whether in terms of substance or otherwise? Is there anything that you would say to pass on in terms of approach?
Good question. So I think in terms of the approach to the job, I suppose what I would say is the quote that used to be on a piece of paper hanging right next to my computer screen when I powered up my computer in the old office, which was from Winston Churchill in the 1920s. And he said, "Hear this, young men and women, and proclaim it far and wide. The earth is yours and the fullness thereof. Be kind, but be fierce. You are needed now more than ever before." And here's the critical part: take up the mantle of change, for now is your time. These jobs are, of course, ephemeral. You hold the gavel for a period of time. Mine, of course, is coming to a close. But while I held the gavel, I was very determined to make sure that whatever my agenda was, I worked as hard as I could and as collaboratively as I could to achieve that agenda. Whatever the next chair's agenda is, I hope she or he will have the courage of her convictions or his convictions to craft a strategy and then execute it. And I hope that whatever that strategy is, that he or she is successful, because at the end of the day, the FCC's success is America's success, regardless of party affiliation. And in terms of substance, I would say, come up with whatever regulatory framework you think is best calibrated to promote competition, innovation, and investment. There are, of course, going to be policy differences from commissioner to commissioner, chairman to chairman, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's up to whoever holds that gavel and a majority thereof of the commission, of course, to make a determination. So I wish the future commission all the very best. It's a challenging job, no doubt about it. You're going to get a lot of arrows slung at you, and certainly I've got a lot more gray hair now than when I started 4 years ago. But I wish them the very best, and will try to be as supportive as I possibly can be in their deliberations.
Well, I don't see too much gray hair, at least on my so but based on everything you've done, maybe you should have more gray hair because of how hard you work. So it's hard to improve upon what you just said, and I don't want to even try. I want those to be the closing words here. You know, I'll just say as we part today once more, thank you for all you've done. Congratulations on the job you've done, and whatever comes next for you. I know in that position, wherever you are, that you'll find a way to contribute meaningfully. I know you'll also do consequential things, and don't be at all surprised. In fact, consider this actually a forewarning and an invitation. We're certainly looking forward to having you back in the future at Free State Foundation events, and look forward to that. And so I'll just say thanks, and we all look forward to seeing you again in person, hopefully soon. Okay.
Thank you so much, Randy, to Seth, to Andrew. It's been a privilege, and look forward to collaborating in whatever my next adventure might be.
Okay, I'm gonna, with that, end the meeting and say goodbye to all, and until we meet the next time. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Chairman Pai. Godspeed to you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.